Well, hello again. We're heading back out to the shop to give you an update on a couple of things that are going on. I know some of you are pretty disappointed that we haven't done a certain kind of video, but we'll give you an explanation here in a minute. I know, where's the video on the jukebox? It's been so long we practically forgot about it, haven't we? Well, I haven't, don't worry, I haven't. I got caught up in a bunch of other things, and then I set up everything. We've got everything set up now for the next jukebox video. We're going to slap a couple of oscilloscope probes in there. We're going to do some oscilloscope probing. I changed the signal generator out. Trust me, there has been some work done on it, and I haven't, in the meantime, I tried to fill in a little bit. I got some parts coming in. In the meantime, I put up a Thunderbird video to kind of help fill in the gap, and then I put up a car show video to kind of fill up the gap. And now I'm going to, after this is over with, when this segment of the video ends, I'm going to give you another Thunderbird video. It'll just have to suffice. I think in the next 2 or 3 days, the items I need to do this job should be in, okay? And then we can do a quick video, and hopefully. I didn't expect it to take so long. I ordered some things, my God, it must be 2 weeks ago, and it's on the way. It just hasn't arrived. Coming from China, of course. So anyway, without any further ado, trust me, I haven't forgotten. We're going to get back to it. Be patient a little bit longer. And then, old Brendan, he said, you need to buckle down, John, and get that done. I know these things, I know this, okay? We'll get it done. Let's move on with another Thunderbird video. You'll have to be content with it until that comes in, but when it comes in, we're gonna stop everything and go on that, okay? Sorry. What we have here is a problem. One of our good subscribers, Conestoga Wagon, he said, John, why don't you do yourself a favor, and before you put this thermostat back in and put the reservoir back in and cover the whole thing, why don't you go ahead and remove that hose and change it now? Later on it's going to blow, probably, is what he was thinking, and then I'm going to have to take everything back off again and go through the whole rigmarole. Well, I said, that's not a bad idea, why not? So I removed the old hose because it was squishy. First I felt it. It was pretty soft. It was pretty darn soft. So I went ahead and took it off, and I'm glad I did, because as it turned out, this nipple right here that goes into the engine block, underneath there was a rusted slot all the way through, all the way back to the engine block. I don't know what kept it from leaking. Maybe it was leaking all this time. I never knew it because I didn't own the car. So I had to remove the old nipple, which I did with a Bernzomatic torch, and I took a moto tool and went down as deep as I could go with a small grinding stone. I eventually cut a slot down in there to where I could squeeze it together, and after I heated it, it loosened up pretty good, and tapped down with a chisel to kind of push the sides in, grabbed it with a needle nose, and it came right out. Alright, then I cleaned it all up, bought a new one. This was a 5/8 inch nipple I got from O'Reilly. Brendan gave me the part number for it before I could even get a chance to look for it. It was already in my email, so which really helped a lot. And of course I had to cut the end of it off because it was really long. It was like about that long. But I cut the end of it off, and then I kind of ground around the outside with a sanding drum from my motor tool, kind of take it down just a little bit. Used JB Weld and then just shoved it on in there. Did a good job of sealing it with JB Weld. Looks pretty good. Now, here's the problem. We have to get a hose back on here. I wanted a hose that would go the entire full length, which would require me to remove the water pump, which only has 2 bolts over here and 2 bolts down in there. It would have been no problem. And then, of course, I would have had to loosen up everything and remove the belt. Just pull it apart far enough to where I could get the hose on, and then shove it back in with new gaskets, which I have. If as long as the old gaskets came out nice and easy. If not, it would have been a real problem. But that's okay. I got nothing but time anyway. But anyway, Brendan said, no. He said, well, if you want to do that, that's fine. You want to spend 3-4 hours doing this crap, that's up to you. There is another way. And I knew about that way. I've done it that way before. But, this is a big engine. I've never had an engine that was 390 cubic inches, and I've never had a thermostat that ran at 195 degrees. So I was really concerned about, I wanted a full coverage on both of those nipples. But this hose I bought to replace the old one did not look any, the old one didn't look anything like this. The old one was too soft and squishy. So this one is pretty darn tough. So I cut it out. Here's the way you do this. Now you measure from here to the front edge of your nipple here, okay? And then you cut your hose that long, like so. And then you work it down, and now sometimes you have to cut off a little bit of this nipple here sticking out too. I hope not to have to do that. Yeah, maybe I can put a little Vaseline on the edge there, to kind of get this thing going down in there. Once I get it going down in there and slip it on, it'll hopefully slip all the way on, and it will be not in the way of the, let me get this thing down there, see, it'll be right on the edge. If I can get it to the right spot, there we go. It'll be right on the edge of the other one. So I'll be able to shove it down a little bit and then shove it forward, and the idea here is to have it split the difference between the two and put a clamp around it. Now the question is, can I pull it off? Well, I don't know. I think so, without having to cut this off. Now I sanded this down as much as I could. There's still some rust on it, as you can see, but the hose clamp and the way this hose is made in the middle here should be able to give me a nice tight seal around here. And if this thing is leaking, that I put in, if it ever develops a leak around that JB weld, which it should not, but if it ever does, with this thing not being jammed up against the block, like this, it'll be back far enough. I could also add just a little more JB weld to it, and that should seal the leak. So let's see if I can get it slipped on this one first. I may have to take just a tad more off the hose. I don't know. We'll play it by ear, okay? Well, as it turned out, I had to actually cut off a piece of this nipple coming out of the water pump, about that much. I used one of these little hand hacksaw blades, just back and forth and back and forth. It was a laborious task, trust me. And now I'm in, because the hose just wouldn't go on there. It was just not enough clearance between the two. I had no choice. But that'll still give us plenty of clamping space to clamp it down, if I can get it on now. So what we're going to do now is I have my little Black & Decker rotary thing out of here, and I'm going to take it. It's got a grinding stone in it. I'm going to, grind it down nice and smooth all the way around, do the best I can. I think from here on out, if I have to take any more off, I'll just grind it away. And that should take care of it. So, I don't know. I'll get back with you when I'm done with the initial grinding, smoothing it up. Alright, I've got it ground down as smooth as I can with the rotary tool. What I'm going to do is take a little sandpaper and do the rest by hand. But right now, there's a lot of metal filings now that wound up down inside that tube. I'm going to try to vacuum as much of it out as I can with the old vacuum cleaner, okay? Alright, that should do it. That was a shop vac, so I wasn't worried about any water that came out with it. Alright, let's smooth it up by hand now. Alright, she sanded down real good, and that should give me the clearance I need to get that thing at an angle shoved up on that stub there. I may have to shorten the hose just a tad, grind it off just a tad, maybe no more than 1/8 of an inch to give me an extra clearance. I don't know. But we're going to try to force that baby down on there, and then hopefully it'll go on as far as it can, and then all I have to do is like bend it down and line it up with this one and then slide it forward. That's the plan. Well, there you go. That job is done. I'm glad it wasn't easy. It was kind of hard actually, but what the heck. It's the fun part of this thing. I would have preferred to have, like I said, the hose all the way up here and all the way up there, but I've got plenty of clamping surface on both sides. I think today I have to run down to O'Reilly's today. I think instead of putting the old clamps on, I think I'm going to go ahead and put nice new ones on there. Okay, there she is, all clamped down nice and tight. That baby's not going to go anywhere. That's I consider that a successful fix, even though it's really not what I wanted to do. But that should last a long time. This morning I'm taking the brake drums off the rear wheels down to O'Reilly's Auto Parts. I'm going to have them put a micrometer here and measure the thickness of this around here of our brake drum, the braking surface. You know, this drum, as I stated when I first took it off the car, I said that it had been turned on a lathe, and it is. It's nice and smooth, really nice. But I don't know, you know, you got to understand, this is a 2.5 ton car, and look how thin that is. I noticed that right away when I took it off. I said, man, it's awfully looking thin there. I'm not so sure about this. Well, I finally got the time. I'm going to go ahead and look at the, it looks like they really turned it down a lot. Not this entire distance, but quite a ways. So I'm going to take it down and have them put a micrometer on it. It's called miking. I'm going to let them tell me whether or not it's within tolerance. There is a tolerance. You can only take off so much. If you take off too much, it becomes unsafe. Well, after I took it on down to O'Reilly and the old boy mic'd it down there, I looked up a chart, and I found out by looking online what the actual diameter should be, and then what he measured using the chart. And I conferred with Brendan, because he's a master mechanic. I wanted to make sure my number, you know, I'm not that good at math, so I wanted to make sure he agreed with me. And he came down with the conclusion they've only taken off a 1/16 of an inch when they turn these drums. That's very good, no problem at all. I was watching a couple of YouTubes the other day, YouTube videos, and they said that vinegar will remove rust. Huh. Okay, I'll give it a try. I'll give anything a try. So I went downtown and bought a couple of bottles of vinegar at $2 a bottle, as opposed to Evaporust at $20 a gallon. I get 2 gallons of vinegar for $4. I cut a hole in the top of one of them, put it inside this container, and then I just took this baby and just stuck it down in there and leaned it up against the wall like this, and let it sit for about 3-4 days, and sure enough, it removed almost all of the rust. And then I took it into the shop, the maintenance shop, and talked to the boys where I used to work. And they put it on the wire brush and cleaned the rest of it off for me as much as it would go. That worked pretty good. Right now I've got the bolts that hold the gas tank on. I've got them in there. They've been soaking. This is the 2nd day now. Oh yeah, a lot of that rust is beginning to come off too. These things were really rusty. Look at that. It looks like there's a lot on there, but compared to what there was, there's not much. I'm just going to let it soak for couple more days and see what happens. I mean, you got lots of time. I can let it sit in there for a week and a half if I want. Meanwhile, we're going to take this little old gas tank. It's got a greasy coating they put on it to keep it from rusting. It's like a cosmoline. And I got a bottle of mineral spirits today down at Walmart. We're going to take this mineral spirits on a rag. We're going to, wipe all this tank down, top and bottom, sides, everything. Because when we get done, we're going to tape off the holes and whatnot, and we're going to prime it, let it dry with good Rust-Oleum primer, and then we're going to undercoat it before it goes back up in the car. I want it totally undercoated. I've got the undercoat and the primer. Interestingly enough, I went out and bought one of these for the filler tube. It came with the tank, and of course, this is the gasket and retaining ring for the sender. They included that in there too. I thought that was a nice touch. So now I've got double of each. But down here, now this tank was made in Canada. Down here it's crooked. I'm going to have to bang that out. It got dented in shipment, or dented in the way they made it. It's supposed to be straight, and it's raised up there. And I don't know how this happens. This makes no sense. This should not happen. And then the end of this thing is bent over, so I'm going to have to straighten that out. I don't know, they pack these things pretty good, and then we got a big dent right here. I think I'll just leave that one. I don't know. This is the weld. I don't want to be messing with the weld too much. I really don't want to be messing with it too much here either, but I don't know. I'm going to try to straighten that out a little bit, maybe not. I don't know. You start messing with the weld, you break the weld, you got all kinds of problems. If it had a double weld, I'd be okay, but I don't know. I just don't like it. Maybe a couple of blocks of wood, one banging against the other with a hammer. At the very least I want to do is straighten this out, okay? The other one, since this is the top of the tank, let me see now. This is the, yes, this is the top of the tank. Because right here, this is made in Canada. Like I said, this is the top of the tank. This is your vent tube. I got to take the old tube and the clips that held it on here. I got to take them off the old tank and get them remounted up here. So that's what we're going to do today. Clean it up, get the gook off it and everything, and try to get a coat of at least primer on it, although the day might rain me out. I don't know. Alright, let's get started. Put a little of that stuff on there, just give it a good bath. Just start rubbing it down. Shouldn't take too long, really. Just going to wipe it all down, get that crap off of there. When it comes time to put the paint on, I'll be taping up these holes around here, make it look really good before we spray it, definitely before we prime it. Alright, let me go ahead and shut off, and I'll show you the product when we're done. After you've finished wiping it down with your mineral spirits, getting all the crap off that you can get off, you know, this is one of these take your time deals, you know. And take a dry rag, nice clean dry rag, and wipe it all off to get the last remaining little residual that might still be clinging to the tank. I was able to straighten out this corner. It's a lot straighter than it was. And over here I was able to straighten out that one that was really rolled in, but I didn't straighten it out too much. I really don't want to interfere with that weld, that corner weld in particular. So now what I'm going to do, well, one more thing, make sure when you do your mineral spirits, get down inside there and clean it off. This is where our rubber O-ring fits. By the way, up there in Canada, old QC inspector, I think it would be number 28. Whoever that inspector is up there, it says Spectra Premium Gas Tank. QC number 28 says it's in wonderful condition. It passed. Pretty low standards, I'd say, up there. Or these are rejects. I'm not sure which. Anyway, we've gone ahead and taped all the holes off. One more thing before I start spraying. I'm going to spray it with good old, just regular old Rust-Oleum primer. You always put primer and bare metal. Always. Don't try to paint over it, or some people just go ahead and undercoat it right on. Not me. We're going to prime it first, then we'll put the undercoat on after the primer's dry. Your vent tube, if you have a tank like this someday, make sure you tape it up pretty far, maybe an inch, 3/4 of an inch to an inch. The reason being is there's a rubber hose that has to slide on there. You don't want to just paint the whole thing, and you don't want to get that hole clogged, okay, with paint. Well, as you can see, our tank looks really good. I primed it with black primer, Rust-Oleum. Cleaned it, primed it, and then, like I said, I put the undercoating on. It looks really nice and smooth. Really turned out really well. All right. Next problem. This is our filler tube. I've gone ahead and derusted the entire thing. I took it in to the guys at the shop in the maintenance area in Burco, and they ran it across their wire brush for me and got it all out. Did a few touch-ups on the welds because one of them had come loose. Here's the big problem. The problem of the day, and I think I know how to solve it, but see that dent? That dent is right there where the gasket goes, or that O-ring. And it's been dented quite a while. It looks like, I don't know. It starts here, goes all the way down, then it went down through here. And I don't really want to put that O-ring across that because I'm afraid I'm going to be leaking a lot of fumes and everything. It's only going to deteriorate over time, get worse and worse on that gasket, just like it was deteriorated, if you remember. So what I'm thinking about doing is I'm going to grind this up, rough it up real good with my moto tool, and then I'm going to fill that in with JB Weld and let it dry. And then, you know, one thing about JB Weld, it's easy to sand. I can sand that nice and smooth across there until I get it just the way I want it, and I won't have that sunk in spot. Then when I put it down in there, it should seal really good on that O-ring. That's my idea. I think it's going to work. It seems to me I've done this once before somewhere, not on a tube, but on something else. Let's talk a little bit more about this filler tube. You'll notice that there's a dent right there, and that is exactly where that O-ring comes across. It has really been boogered up in the past. I don't know who did it, but you can see there's a big low spot there. Okay. Well, we can't really leave it like that, because when the O-ring comes around, it's going to go across there. It might close up somewhat, but not a whole lot. So we're going to have to do something. I want to smooth that up so the O-ring doesn't get torn up. You'll remember when I took this thing out, the O-ring was already torn up, and that's where it was torn up. They tried to force it into the neck of the gas tank at some point, probably at the factory or something, I don't know. And it worked all these years, but I don't want to take any chances. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind that out, rough it up with my motor tool and a sanding drum, and then we're going to fill that in with JB Weld, let it dry, and then smooth it over so we have a nice smooth surface for the O-ring to be pressed against. I just don't like that. Probably wouldn't hurt a thing, but you know, I don't want to take any chances. Alright, let's see how the second soaking of those big old hooks that hold the gas tank in are coming along. Well, there's a clip that holds the vent line to the gas tank. We got a couple of those down in there. Let me get that off. Probably soaking it in the vinegar, I think, took all that rust off, or most of it. Yep, looks like it took it all off. Let's get the second one out, then we'll take them inside and wash them up. Oh yeah, the old hooks look really good. The old hooks look really good. We got a little bit of rust right there. Almost comes off when you rub it with your finger. Look at there. Alright, well, I guess this vinegar trick does work. Somebody put salt in one of theirs, and that doesn't look bad at all. I'm not complaining at all about that. Let's see how the other one looks. Well, the other one looks even better. Okay, does vinegar remove rust? You better believe it. You are the witnesses. There's supposed to be another, those little brackets. There we go. Let's see what this bracket looks like. Looks like rust right there, but it's not. It's just dirt and oil that the vinegar is taking. Look at that. Boy, I'll tell you what, that works, guys. Cheap way of doing it, as long as you got the time. And it took several days to get that all done now. Before we go any further, we need to make a correction that I made. I made a statement last time that was actually wrong, and I knew better because I knew what it was. I said that this wire right here, that wire right there, was the emergency brake cable. It is not. That is the self-adjuster cable. It self-adjusts. It hooks up here, runs down along here, down around, and down to the center area where it's hooked to this adjuster down here. This is the adjuster right there. Now when you back up your car and you hit the brakes real hard, the brakes expand and it pulls that cable. It pulls the cable this way. When it pulls that cable, because you know the brakes go open, and then it pulls that cable that way, which brings this part of the cable up. And when this brings this part of the cable up, there's a lever center thing down here that goes like that. And when it does, it makes this thing go down one notch. And when it goes down one notch, it adjusts that adjuster. Keeps your brakes adjusted for you. But I'll tell you what, in all the years I've seen these and used them, I've never trusted them, and they've never worked. Mostly because the adjuster was rusted. Now if it can't go any further, you know, if the adjuster just can't go any further because it's maxed out and the brakes are real tight against the drum, this thing here will just slip past those little cogs you see there, and it won't adjust anything. But that's the way it is. That's the way it works. So, self-adjuster cable, not the emergency brake cable. The emergency brake cable is over here. See that thing coming in right there? That's your emergency brake cable. Comes in from the rear down here at the bottom. If I can get the light on it. That's it right there, all the way in the rear. That funny looking metal thing with the spring-like looking thing coming out of it. That's the emergency brake cable, okay? Alright, that ought to satisfy a couple of our viewers. They caught me on it right away. Alright, everything is put back together up here, with the exception of this vacuum line. This vacuum line here runs over and it runs right now the way they had it inside the carburetor. And it came down around. It was kind of a squirrely looking affair. and it ran over here and it connects to the what's called the vacuum advance. That's the vacuum advance right there. See that line coming into it? That's your vacuum advance. There's your line coming into it. It requires vacuum to operate. Today I'll be getting in, I'm waiting for the FedEx man to arrive. He's going to bring me a brand new master cylinder. He's going to bring me 2 wheel cylinders for the rear of the car. And he's going to bring me 2 straps, brand new straps, for putting up the gas tank. Put the gas tank back in the car. And that money will not come out of our budget because for Father's Day, my son gave me a $100 Rock Auto gift certificate. And I immediately used it for those things, okay? So we're right on track on the budget still. Alright, now that everything's been cleaned up and looking good, what I'm going to do is just take some Rust-Oleum primer and then spray paint these things black and put it all together temporarily. And this is the vent line that was on top of the tank that vents the gas tank. And I've got some new rubber tips for each of it, for each end. One end connects to the vent. That would be this one right here. Connects to the vent that goes into the tank. This one just sort of, I don't know, sort of a cushion for the end of the tube where it comes out and rests against the top of the tank. So that'll be, that'll all be done, I think, in the next video. We'll go ahead and put all that together. We'll have it painted by then. Put it all together. Alright, one more thing we're going to do between now and the next video. I'm going to power wash these. These were the brackets that sit on top of the shocks, remember? I'm going to go ahead and power wash and get all these mud moss nests out of them. I'm going to power wash as much of that surface rust off as I can. And then we're going to put the rest of the vinegar I got. We're going to fill that thing up as far as we can go with vinegar. And then we're going to plunge these down in there, let them sit for about a week. Let's see what it does with some really, really heavy rust. We're going to get this old vinegar deal a good workout, but I'll tell you what, I'll bet you it eats off every bit of that, or at least most of it, to where we can go ahead and wire brush. We may have to take it out, wire brush it once in a while, put it back in, but I think it'll get to the point where all we have to do is put on the old Rust-Oleum primer and black paint, and we're done. Put it all back together. By that time, I hope to have a good set of shocks, maybe with some lifter springs on them, or what they call booster springs. We'll see, because the left side of the car, remember, is kind of sagging down a little bit. I want that thing up. And leaf springs I would like to have, brand new ones, but oh my god, they cost a fortune. Well, I just came around the corner with the dog, old Rocky, our dachshund, giving him his evening walk. And that old FedEx man, he just sort of must have, I just got out of the shower, he just spirited in and spirited out, didn't even hear him. Anyway, here it is. There's our straps, and this will be our master cylinder and 2 wheel cylinders. I'll tell you what, since we're on the budget and the cost of things, I thought I'd run down a couple of quick items and then we'll close the video out. Just to show you what people are asking. You know, when you're doing a restoration or a refurbishment like I am, you have to be very, very disciplined. You can't just go out there and start blowing money, unless you got tons of money to blow, no problem. You know, I've got enough money to do it, but I'm not going to go crazy, and I'm not going to pay enormous prices just because somebody's asking that much. Let me give you an idea. This little thing right here, this Thunderbird plastic thing right there, it just goes from here to here. They want $67.50 plus shipping. That's I'd take it off of there before I'd spend that kind of money. You know, this is not a complete, you know, show car restoration. And a radio for this thing, $425. A clock for the dash up there, $130 for a tiny little clock. You know, I'd let the thing go inoperative before I'd spend $130. But that's me, you know. Let me see. What do you think they want for a jack? You know, the jack that used to go underneath the bumper here, then it would jack the car up. What do you think they want for that jack? They're asking $160 for a jack. Go downtown, go to Harbor Freight or someplace and buy a little scissor jack. Forget that $160. Okay, and the last one I'll give you, I have a couple more, but I don't want to wear you out. What do you think they want for a set of rubber floor mats for the front of the car? Just the rubber floor mat, just you know, the rubber floor mat with maybe the little, I don't know, might have a Thunderbird emblem in it, similar to this, you know, I don't know. What do you think they want for that? 190 bucks. Just go ahead and dwell on that for a while. Until next time, this is John.